The emergency bay doors of Nexus 1 Interspecies Medical Center hissed open as another pod touched down. Dr. Krith's secondary breathing gills fluttered with anticipation, the universal sign of a Zentarian physician preparing for work. The crystalline appendages along their spine illuminated in sequence, a biological response that had evolved to help their species see during deep space medical emergencies. "Human patient incoming," announced the automated system. "Multiple trauma. Accident during zero-gravity construction." Grith moved with practiced efficiency toward the incoming stretcher, their four-fingered hands already reaching for the diagnostic scanner. The patient was unconscious, male, with the characteristic pink skin tone that still fascinated Grith, even after 3 years of working with humans. What caught their attention immediately was the erratic pattern on the vital signs hologram floating above the stretcher. "This can't be right," Grith muttered, tapping the display with a silvery finger. The readings were unlike anything they'd seen in their 200 years of medical practice. The cardiac rhythm seemed to fluctuate in patterns that defied standard medical parameters. "Dr. Grith." Dr. Sarah Chen rushed into the bay, her dark hair escaping its neat bun. "I came as soon as I saw it was a human case. What are you seeing?" Grith's upper eye ridge furrowed. "The readings are chaotic. By Zentarian standards, this patient should be in critical condition, yet the color in his extremities suggests otherwise." Sarah moved closer, her eyes scanning the holographic readouts. A small smile played at her lips. "Those readings are actually quite normal for a human under stress. Our hearts don't just pump blood, they respond to our emotions, our fears, even our dreams while unconscious." Grith's gill flaps expanded in surprise. "Emotions affect your physiological functions to this degree. How do you maintain homeostasis?" "That's just it," Sarah replied, already working to stabilize the patient. "Our emotions are part of our homeostasis. Here, let me show you something fascinating." She placed her hand on the patient's arm, maintaining physical contact while she administered a standard human painkiller. Grith watched in astonishment as the chaotic readings began to stabilize, not to Zentarian norms, but into a pattern that Sarah clearly recognized as improved. "Physical contact," Sarah explained, "especially from another human, can help regulate our nervous system. We call it co-regulation. It's why human hospitals on Earth never completely automated patient care, even when they could have." Grith's crystalline spine lights pulsed with interest. They had always considered the human insistence on physical presence in medical care to be an odd cultural attachment to primitive practices. But now, as they worked together to treat the patient's injuries, Grith found themselves recording every deviation from Zentarian medical norms. The way the human's cellular repair rate increased with positive social interaction. The subtle changes in brain wave patterns when Sarah spoke soothingly to him, even while unconscious. "Dr. Chen," Grith said as they finished applying the last regenerative field, "I believe I've been approaching human medicine from an entirely wrong paradigm. Your species' physiological responses aren't irregular. They're integrated with your emotional processing in ways our medical training never considered." Sarah nodded, making final adjustments to the medical stasis field. "That's why the Interspecies Medical Initiative is so important. We all have so much to learn from each other. Though I have to admit," she added with a grin, "humans might be particularly complicated cases." Indeed, Grith's spine lights flickered in what Sarah had learned to recognize as amusement. "I've noticed that human vital signs often show unusual spikes when certain medical staff members are present. Initially, I attributed it to stress responses, but given this new understanding—" Sarah's cheeks flushed slightly pink, a fascinating human response that Grith had never fully understood. Yes, that might be related to different kinds of emotions. Perhaps we should schedule some time to discuss human physiological responses in more detail." Before Grith could respond, the emergency bay doors hissed open again. "Multiple trauma incoming. Mining accident on Ganymede Station." Grith straightened, spine lights brightening to full intensity. It seems our discussion will have to wait, Dr. Chen. Though I must admit, I'm now far more intrigued by human medicine than ever before. As they moved to receive the new patients, Krith reflected that perhaps there was much more to learn about humans than mere biology. Their integration of emotion and physiology suggested possibilities that could revolutionize interspecies medicine, if one knew where to look for the signs. The next wave of patients brought new challenges, but for the first time, Krith felt they were beginning to truly understand their human patients, not just as biological systems to be repaired, but as complex beings whose hearts told stories that any good doctor should learn to read. 2 weeks after their breakthrough with the construction worker, Krith found themselves poring over neural scan data in their private research pod. The transparent walls displayed countless holographic readouts of human brain activity, each one a puzzle more complex than the last. Computer, overlay emotional response patterns from patients A through F, Krith commanded. The displays shifted, creating a synchronized visualization of neural activity from 6 different human patients. Each had been treated for similar injuries, but their recovery rates varied significantly. The door chimed softly. "Enter," Krith called, not taking their 3 eyes off the data streams. Dr. Sarah Chen walked in, carrying 2 steaming containers. "I brought you some Zentarian mineral broth. And coffee for me. I have a feeling we'll be here a while." Krith's gill flaps fluttered in appreciation as they accepted the broth. "Look at these patterns, Dr. Chen." Patient C recovered 43% faster than patient A, despite nearly identical injuries and treatment protocols. The only significant variable was the frequency of family visits. Sarah settled into a hover chair, blowing steam from her coffee. "Social connections are powerful medicine for humans. We've known this intuitively for millennia, but seeing it quantified in your neural mapping is fascinating." More than fascinating, Krith's spine lights pulsed with excitement. "It's revolutionary. Look here." They gestured at a particular neural pathway highlighted in gold. "This region shows increased activity during social interaction, but it's not just processing emotional responses. It's actively accelerating cellular regeneration in injured areas." Sarah leaned forward, her dark eyes widening. "The limbic resonance is affecting the autonomic nervous system directly. That shouldn't be possible. By conventional medical understanding, no. But humans." Krith's upper eye ridge crinkled in what Sarah now recognized as their version of a smile. "Humans consistently defy conventional medical understanding." A sudden alert flashed across the displays. "Emergency consultation requested in Recovery Ward 7, the computer announced. They found their recent construction accident patient, Tom Rivera, in apparent distress. His vital signs were erratic, but not in the now familiar pattern of normal human emotional variation. "Mr. Rivera." Sarah approached the bed while Krith began scanning. "Can you tell us what's wrong?" "The pain," he gasped. "It's different from before. And I can't feel my left side properly." Krith's gill flaps flattened, their expression of concern. "Neural patterns are degrading. The regenerative field seems to be failing. But I don't understand why. All settings are optimal." Sarah studied the readings, then looked at the empty room. "Tom, your family was here earlier. When did they leave?" "A few hours ago," he managed through gritted teeth. "They had to return to Earth. Won't be back for 2 weeks." Krith watched in fascination as Sarah took Tom's hand in hers. Almost immediately, his neural patterns began to shift. Not back to normal, but away from the dangerous instability they'd been approaching. "Dr. Krith," Sarah said quietly, "remember what we discussed about co-regulation? I think we need to modify the standard recovery protocols for human patients." Over the next several hours, they developed a new treatment approach. Krith's knowledge of neural field manipulation combined with Sarah's understanding of human psychological needs produced something entirely new. They set up a schedule ensuring human medical staff maintained regular personal contact with patients, integrated holographic communications with family members, and modified the regenerative fields to synchronize with patients' emotional states. It's not just about healing the body, Sarah explained as they watched Tom's readings stabilize under the new protocol. For humans, healing is a full system process. Mind, body, and what we call the heart, though not the literal organ you're familiar with. Karith's spine lights flickered thoughtfully. You mean the emotional center. We Zentarians understand emotion, but we've evolved to process it differently. It's fascinating to see a species whose physical health is so intertwined with their emotional well-being. They worked late into the night, documenting their findings and refining the new protocols. Other cases began to show similar patterns. Human patients responded better to treatment when their emotional needs were met alongside their physical ones. Dr. Chen, Grith said as they finally prepared to end their shift, I believe we're on the verge of something unprecedented in interspecies medicine. But I have a hypothesis that extends beyond just human patients. Sarah raised an eyebrow. Oh, if human emotional states can affect physical healing to this degree, perhaps there are aspects of human medical practice that could benefit other species as well, even Zentarians. The suggestion was radical. Zentarian medicine was highly advanced and had been standardized for centuries. Yet, as they watched their human patients' remarkable recoveries, Grith couldn't help but wonder if their own species' clinical detachment had caused them to miss something fundamental about the healing process. As if reading their thoughts, Sarah placed a gentle hand on Grith's crystalline shoulder. The touch sent an unexpected ripple of light through their spine structure. Ready to break some new ground in interstellar medicine, partner. Grith's gill flaps fluttered with anticipation. Indeed, Dr. Chen. Indeed. The meeting chamber of Nexus One's medical board hummed with tension. Grith stood before the assembled directors, their spine lights dimmed in the formal setting. The holographic displays behind them showed the results of their research with Dr. Chen. Weeks of data demonstrating the remarkable success of their new treatment protocols. This is unprecedented, declared Chief Medical Director Vaxel, their crystalline features refracting the room's light in patterns of disapproval. You propose to fundamentally alter our established treatment protocols based on emotional responses. The data is irrefutable, Grith responded, gesturing to the neural mapping displays. Human patients under our modified protocols show recovery rates improved by an average of 47%. In some cases, the improvement exceeds 60%. But at what cost? Another board member's gill flaps fluttered agitatedly. These methods require significant staff resources, physical presence, extended interaction periods. It's inefficient. With respect, Dr. Sarah Chen stepped forward, her voice steady despite the intimidating array of Zentarian medical leaders. Before her, efficiency shouldn't be our only metric. If we can dramatically improve patient outcomes. Dr. Chen, Vaxel interrupted. While we value the human perspective, Nexus One operates on Zentarian medical principles. Our methods are the result of centuries of advancement. Grith's spine lights pulsed briefly, a sign of frustration they couldn't quite suppress. Director, those centuries of advancement were achieved through willingness to evolve our understanding. When the evidence demands it, we must adapt. The debate continued for hours. Grith and Sarah presented case after case, demonstrating how their integrated approach had not only improved recovery times, but also reduced complications and readmission rates. Yet with each new piece of evidence, the board seemed to grow more entrenched in their resistance. Finally, Vaxel raised their hand for silence. We have heard enough. While your research is interesting, we cannot justify restructuring our entire medical system based on human emotional responses. Return to standard protocols immediately. As they left the chamber, Sarah's shoulders slumped. I'm sorry, Grith. I know how much this meant to you. Grith's response was interrupted by an urgent alert. Emergency in Ward 12. Critical patient status. They rushed to the ward to find Tom Rivera, their original test case, convulsing on his bed. The neural regeneration field had completely collapsed, and his readings were chaos. Standard protocols aren't working, the attending physician reported. We've tried everything in the approved procedures. Krith looked at the failing patient, then at Sarah, then at the observation window where several board members had gathered to watch. In that moment, they made their decision. "Clear the room," Krith commanded. "Except you, Dr. Chen. We're implementing our integrated protocol." But the board, the attending physician protested, "can file whatever complaints they wish after we save this patient's life." As the room cleared, Krith and Sarah worked in perfect synchronization. Sarah established the physical connection they discovered was so crucial for human healing, while Krith modified the neural field generators to match the patient's emotional frequency patterns. "Come on, Tom," Sarah murmured, maintaining contact. "Your daughter's graduation is next month, remember? You promised you'd be there." Krith's gill flaps vibrated as they made minute adjustments to the field strength. Neural patterns stabilizing, autonomic system responding. "Look at the cellular regeneration rates." Through the observation window, the board members watched in stunned silence as Tom's condition steadily improved. His neural patterns aligned, his vitals stabilized, and within 20 minutes, he was sleeping peacefully. Later, in Krith's research pod, they received the official notice, a formal reprimand for violating protocols, but also authorization to continue their research under controlled conditions. They couldn't ignore success like that, Sarah said, sliding a fresh coffee across the desk to Krith. "Even the most traditional Zentarian has to respect clear evidence." Krith's spine lights brightened. "Perhaps, but I suspect our real challenge is just beginning. If emotional connection can affect healing to this degree in humans, what other medical assumptions might we need to challenge? What other connections have we missed?" Sarah smiled, ready to break some more protocols. Indeed, Krith's gill flaps fluttered in amusement. "Though perhaps we should focus on documenting our current successes before we upend any more centuries of Zentarian medical tradition." As they began analyzing the data from Tom's case, Krith reflected that perhaps the most significant protocol they'd broken wasn't medical at all. It was the assumption that species had to remain distant and clinical to maintain professional standards. In working with Sarah, they discovered that connection itself could be a form of medicine. The emergency alert blared through Nexus 1 with an urgency Krith had never heard before. "Mass casualty event incoming. Human colony shuttle crash on Europa. Multiple critical patients. All medical staff report immediately." Krith's research pod transformed into an emergency command center as they coordinated with Sarah to prepare for the incoming wounded. Holographic displays showed the approaching medical transports. 12 of them, each carrying multiple patients. "Most survivors are in critical condition," Sarah reported, her voice tense as she reviewed the incoming data. "Severe trauma, neural shock from the crash impact. Standard Zentarian protocols. Won't be enough," Krith finished. Their spine lights pulsed rapidly as they made a decision. "Computer, implement emergency protocol KC7. Authorization. Krith Medical Prime." Sarah's eyes widened. "KC7. That's our experimental protocol. The board only approved it for research cases. The board also tasked us with saving lives." Krith responded, gill flaps set with determination. "Computer, reconfigure all emergency bays with neural emotional resonance fields. Dr. Chen, we'll need every human medical staff member available." The first wave of patients arrived in a rush of emergency pods and urgent voices. Krith moved swiftly between cases, their crystalline appendages glowing at full intensity to provide enhanced visibility. Each patient exhibited the chaotic neural patterns they'd come to recognize as human trauma response, but at levels far beyond anything they'd previously encountered. "Patients crashing. Call the voice from Emergency Bay 3. Krith rushed over to find a young human woman, her neural patterns deteriorating rapidly. The attending Zentarian physician was following standard protocols, but the patient's readings continued to worsen. "Move aside," Krith ordered. "Dr. Chen, I need you here." Sarah was there in seconds, her hands immediately finding the patient's pulse points. Grith adjusted the neural field to synchronize with both the patient's and Sarah's emotional frequencies, a technique they'd been developing but hadn't yet tested in crisis conditions. "Talk to her," Grith instructed while monitoring the neural patterns. "Establish the connection." Sarah leaned close to the patient's ear. "Hey there. I'm Dr. Chen. Sarah, you're safe now. We've got you. Can you feel my hands? Focus on that contact. You're not alone." Grith watched in fascination as the patient's neural patterns began to shift, moving gradually from chaos toward stability. The technique they'd discovered wasn't just working, it was working faster than ever before. "Remarkable," breathed the attending physician. "The cellular regeneration rate is responding to the emotional connection," Grith confirmed. "Quick, help me document the protocol. We'll need this for the other patients." Over the next several hours, Grith and Sarah refined and implemented their integrated approach across all emergency bays. They paired human medical staff with Zentarian physicians, teaching them to work in concert, the humans providing the crucial emotional anchor, while the Zentarians manipulated the sophisticated healing technologies to support and enhance the natural human recovery processes. The results were unprecedented. Patient after patient stabilized faster than traditional protocols could have achieved. Even the most severely injured showed cellular regeneration rates that defied conventional medical expectations. In Emergency Bay 7, Grith paused to observe Sarah working with a young crash victim. Her hands moved with practiced efficiency as she treated the physical injuries, but it was her voice, gentle, steady, encouraging, that seemed to have the most profound effect on the patient's neural readings. How did we miss this for so long? Grith wondered aloud. The power of such a simple connection. "Because you were looking for healing in the wrong places," Sarah replied, not taking her eyes off her patient. "Sometimes the most sophisticated medical technology in the galaxy can't match the power of someone simply being there, being present, showing they care." Grith's spine lights flickered thoughtfully. "Perhaps that's the greatest discovery we've made. Not just how to heal humans more effectively, but what humans can teach us about healing itself." As the crisis gradually stabilized, word of their success spread through the medical center. Grith noticed more and more Zentarian physicians observing their techniques, their traditional skepticism giving way to cautious interest. Director Vaxel themselves appeared in the emergency ward, watching silently as Grith and Sarah demonstrated their integrated approach. The director's gill flaps remained carefully neutral, but their spine lights betrayed their amazement at the results. "Your report on this incident," Vaxel finally said. "I want it on my desk as soon as possible. And perhaps we should discuss implementing these protocols more broadly." Grith's gill flaps fluttered in satisfaction. "Of course, Director. Though I should note, this is only the beginning. What we've learned about human healing capacity, about the integration of emotional and physical recovery, I believe it could revolutionize medicine across all species." Sarah caught their eye across the emergency bay and smiled. In that moment, Grith realized that they had done more than just advance medical science. They had begun to bridge the gap between worlds, one healing touch at a time. 6 months after the Europa shuttle crisis, Nexus 1 Medical Center had transformed. Grith stood in their research pod, now expanded into the Interspecies Medical Integration Center, watching teams of human and Zentarian medical staff working together in perfect synchronization. The holographic displays showed streaming data from dozens of patient rooms, each implementing their refined healing protocols. But what caught Grith's attention wasn't the impressive recovery statistics. It was the way their Zentarian colleagues' spine lights had started showing subtle resonance patterns when working closely with human patients and staff. "Fascinating, isn't it?" Sarah's voice came from the doorway. "Your people are adapting to us as much as we've adapted to your methods." Grith's gill flaps fluttered in greeting. "Indeed. Though I never expected our research to have such personal implications." They turned to face the main display, where a new paper was taking shape. "Emotional Resonance as a Universal Healing Factor, Cross-Species Applications in Modern Medicine," by Dr. Krith and Dr. Sarah Chen. The latest neural scans from Zentarian medical staff show something remarkable. Krith continued, bringing up the data. Extended exposure to human emotional fields appears to be activating dormant neural pathways in our own species. Pathways we thought had evolved out of our medical practitioners centuries ago. Sarah moved closer to examine the scans. You mean Zentarians are developing increased emotional sensitivity? Not exactly. More like rediscovering it. Our focus on technological advancement led us to suppress certain natural healing abilities. Working with humans has awakened something we'd forgotten. The data showed clear evidence of change. Zentarian medical staff who worked closely with human patients and colleagues were displaying enhanced healing capabilities, their natural bioluminescence synchronizing with their patients' emotional states in ways that accelerated recovery. Director Vaxel wants to expand the program, Sarah said, pulling up another report. Not just here at Nexus One, but across all major interspecies medical facilities. Your discovery is revolutionizing medicine throughout known space. Our discovery, Krith corrected, their spine lights pulsing warmly. Though I must admit, I never imagined investigating a peculiar human vital sign reading would lead to all this. They were interrupted by a notification. Their weekly follow-up with Tom Rivera, their first success story. The video feed showed him not in a hospital room, but at his daughter's university graduation ceremony on Earth. Dr. Krith, Dr. Chen. Tom's face beamed from the display. I had to share this with you. None of this would have been possible without your work. The camera panned to show his daughter accepting her diploma, then back to his proud, healthy face. Your recovery helped prove our theories, Mr. Rivera, Krith responded. You helped change the future of medicine. After ending the call, Rith and Sarah worked late into the night, refining their paper. The implications of their research had grown far beyond improving human medical care. They were discovering fundamental principles about healing itself, principles that transcended species boundaries. Look at this section on cellular resonance. Sarah pointed to a passage. The way human emotional states can influence physical healing. It's not unique to us. It's just that humans express it more obviously. Every species has this capacity. They just manifest it differently. Krith's gill flaps moved in their version of a thoughtful nod. The universe has much to teach us if we remain open to learning. Even after centuries of medical advancement, we're still discovering new mysteries. A soft alert chimed. Another success story. A Zentarian patient, treated with their integrated protocols, showing unprecedented recovery rates. The patient's spine lights had synchronized with their human caregiver's emotional frequency, creating a healing resonance neither species had achieved alone. You know, Sarah said, watching the patient's readings with satisfaction, when I first joined Nexus One, I never imagined I'd help pioneer a whole new field of medicine. And I never imagined a human's irregular vital signs would lead me to question everything I thought I knew about healing. Krith's spine lights shimmered with amusement. Perhaps that's the greatest lesson in all of this, that true healing transcends our biological differences. It's about connection, understanding, and remaining open to new possibilities. As they stood together, watching the streams of data that represented countless lives touched by their discovery, Krith reflected on how far they'd come. What had begun as a medical mystery had evolved into something far more profound, a bridge between species, a new understanding of life itself. The emergency alert system chimed softly, not an urgent crisis this time, but a reminder that their work was never truly finished. There would always be new patients, new mysteries, new opportunities to learn and grow. Ready for another shift? Sarah asked, already moving toward the door. Krith's spine lights brightened to full intensity. Indeed, Dr. Chen. There are always more secrets for medicine to reveal, if we only know how to listen for the heart's hidden rhythms. Together, they stepped out into the medical center's bustling corridors, ready to continue their work of bridging the gap between worlds, one heartbeat at a time.